In this video, we are going to be talking SAT math linear equations. So let's jump right into it. We're going to be talking about everything there is to know about linear equations on the SAT. So first off, a lot of the time, we're going to see linear equations like this, y equals mx plus b form. And what this means is the m, which is the number multiplied by your one variable, is your slope, and the number added on at the end is your y-intercept. Now, not all linear equations are like this, and we'll talk about other forms of linear equations. But in this case, this is y equals mx plus b form, or slope-intercept form, for obvious reasons, because we see our slope and we see our intercept. Now, notice here how the slope and the x come first, and the y-intercept is after that. But in this equation here, they happen to flip-flop them. So your y-intercept comes first. And you can remember that the slope is always the number multiplied by your variable. That way you don't just think slope comes first, then y-intercept. It's not always the case. So, first off, how do we interpret the slope and the y-intercept? Now, the slope. When we interpret the slope, we should look for some keywords. We should look for increase. We should look for decrease if it's negative. We should look for the word rate, or we should just look for the word change. And you kind of think all of these words have in common the fact that something is manipulated or changing or just varying. So that would be the negative 23 here. The slope is always the number multiplied by your variable. And then the number that's not, the number hanging out by himself, that's your y-intercept. So in this case, they ask us the meaning of the y-intercept, the 108. We should look for our y-intercept keywords, which are starting point or initial value. I can see that we have the word starts with 108 in answer choice B, which is the answer. So I can eliminate C and D rather easily because they have the word rate, which we know goes with slope. And A, Kathy will complete the repairs within 108 days now. We see that keyword, so we pick it and we don't look back. Okay. Next question. They ask us to interpret the 0.56, which is the slope. So we should see our keyword, and I see that here. Total number, no. Average number, no. And I see it in answer choice C. I see the estimated increase each year or per year. A lot of the time you see like per something, per second, per minute. That kind of goes along with slope. Okay, this is one of the grid-in problems. You're going to have 5 grid-in problems on the non-calculator section, and you'll also have 8 on the calculator section. So you'll have 13 of these total on the SAT. They don't give you answer choices, so you need to kind of fill in bubbles with numbers. So honestly, it could be any number, really. According to the model, how many dollars was the initial deposit? Should be pretty simple, right? Just look for the y-intercept. So you'll grid in 15 as your answer. Very straightforward, very quick. Don't take too much time on stuff like this. Don't think it's too easy, and it can't be that easy. It's on the SAT, right? Some of these questions are that easy, and be all right with that. Okay. What is the estimated increase in inches each year? Slope. 3. Boom. Done. Quick questions like that save you time for the harder ones. Bank your time. That way you can spend it on the harder questions. These questions should be easy. Okay, so we've said the word slope a few times, but we haven't really talked about what it means. So slope, when you look at the graph, should look like this if it's positive, goes up and to the right, or down and to the left, basically the same thing. A negative slope goes this way. So it goes up and to the left or down and to the right. Yeah, so you can kind of see the pattern. That's what a negative slope looks like. That's what a positive slope looks like. And in this case, they say strong negative association, meaning a negative slope. D kind of looks like this picture I drew for a negative slope. We're done. That's it. C has a positive slope. B has a slope of 0 since it's horizontal. And A, not really sure what's going on there. That just looks funky. That's just like a blob of points. All right. Next question. They ask us to figure out in which year was the number of miles traveled 550 billion. So we can go up here where the number of miles traveled was 550 billion. And all you do is kind of trace that over to your line and then trace it down to find the year. So make sure you're always going vertically or horizontally. You never want to be doing like crooked lines or anything like that. Just trace it over and down or up and over if you're trying to find the other variable. So I would say this is between 2000 and this would be like 05. So 2003 looks like a good answer, and that's it. All right, next question. Both of these go with this graph. A lot to learn, a really good lesson learned for number unknown. I didn't number these. The graph above displays the total cost, blah, 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 blah. Which of the following represents the relationship between H and C? So it's just saying find the equation of this line. And we said that the slope is rise over run, right? So we want to pick any 2 points and find the rise over run from that point to the other point. So the rise looks like 3 and the run looks like 4 if you count the tick boxes, which is the lesson I want to teach you. So we cannot just count the tick boxes here because if we count them vertically, that's fine. We went up from 8 to 11, so that's an increase of 3, meaning our rise is 3. But if you count the tick boxes here, you see that your run is 4, which is not the case because look how we only went from 1 to 2. The increase was only 1. So the rise over run was actually only 3 over 1. So we can see that the answer is going to be either C or D because the slope is the number multiplied by your variable, but also y equals mx plus b form usually has your y on this side alone. And by this side, I mean on the left. But notice how your y is C here. So C should be alone. So I already think that the answer should be C, but also the y-intercept here, that's the number that it intersects the vertical axis at, that should be 5. So the answer should be C here. All right, so make sure you're not just counting tick boxes for the slope. Y-intercept is a little easier, but you never know. What does the C-intercept or y-intercept mean here? And we should see our keywords. So our keywords, initial. That's our one keyword for intercept. So we'll pick the initial cost and that's it. Don't look back. Be all right with easy answers like that. Okay. Now we have a system of equations, which means we have multiple equations, meaning we have multiple lines. And this is where we're introduced to standard form, which means our x and our y are on the same side here. You could solve for y and put it in y equals mx plus b form, which is fine, and you'll get your slope and you'll get your y-intercept. Or you could get your slope a little bit of an easier way. So get back to that in a second. We want to see where the system of equations has no solution. No solution means that your slopes are the same for both lines. Same is the case when you have infinitely many solutions. That means that you have one line and then your other line is actually on top of it. That's why you have infinitely many intersection points. No solution means that your lines are parallel. Either way, your slopes are the same. So let's figure out our slope here, but I'm going to teach you a way to figure out your slope without having to solve for y. And the way you do that is, I'll do that in the bottom equation. You're going to take the coefficient on the x, which is 4, and divide that by the coefficient on the y, which is -5. Okay, so 4 over -5, and then you flip the sign. So if it's negative, just make it positive. There's your slope. So let's do the same for the top equation. We'll say they're equal, right? Because we said parallel lines, no solution means slopes are equal. Coefficient on the x is k. Coefficient on the y is -3. Flip the sign, and you have k over 3. And we'll set them equal. 4 over 5 equals k over 3. Now, I like to cross multiply when I have fractions on both sides of the equal sign. So I'll multiply these guys and get 12. And that's going to equal these guys multiplied, 5k. And I can divide both sides by 5, and I get k equals 12 over 5. A. That's it. All right. In the system of equations above, we have infinitely many solutions. So same deal, let's find the slopes and say they're equal. The slope of the top line, a over b, flip the sign, put a negative somewhere. Slope of the bottom line, 2 over 8, flip the sign, put a negative somewhere, and say they're equal. Negatives cancel. And look what I'm looking for here. I'm looking for a over b. A over b is just 2 over 8. Which is 1 over 4. So when we go to grid in our answer, you can just grid in 1/4 to grid in a fraction. So that's our answer, 1/4. Okay, next problem. So we have two lines, and it says they're parallel. That means the slopes are the same. The slope of these 2 points with these 2 points should be equal. So rise over run, right? That's how we find our slope. So the rise is, well, we're going from 0 to 2. So the rise is 2. And the run, we're going from -5 to 0. So the run is 5. So rise over run is 2 over 5. Here, the rise, we're going from -4 to 0. So the rise is 4. And the run, we're going from 0 to p. Boom. They're parallel. They're equal. Cross multiply. Divide by 2. Boom. Something I want to mention just because I kind of thought of it. Slope is your rise over run. Rise is your change in y. Run is your change in x, right? You subtract the y's, subtract the x's. Now, something that confuses people is that whenever you have a point, it's always x comma y. So your x coordinate comes first, then your y coordinate. And that gets confusing because when you do your slope, your y is on top, which comes first, and then your x is on the bottom. So you need to be paying attention to what you're doing. You can't just think, oh, it's always x then y. So x goes here, y goes here. Take your time, right? Make sure you know exactly what's going on. Make sure you don't skip any silly steps. Okay. A line in the xy plane passes through the origin, 0, 0 is the origin, right? And has a slope of 1 over 7. Which of the following points lies on the line? Well, believe it or not, they just gave us our y-intercept here, right? At 0, 0, we intersect the y-axis at 0. So we could say the y-intercept is 0. And we have the equation for our line. Y equals mx plus b. So y equals 1/7 x. M is 1/7. And b is 0. So we can just get rid of it. Now it says, which of the following points lies on the line? And to figure out if a point lies on the line, you just plug in your x and your y and see if this equation holds true. So I'm going to plug in 0 for x and 7 for y and see if I get a true equation. So 7 is my y. I don't know why I put a 2. Times x, which is 0. 1/7 times 0 is 0, not 7. So answer choice A is out. I'm going to skip down to answer choice D for sake of time. I know you guys don't like when these videos are too long. So if I plug in 14 for x, I have 1/7 times 14 over 1. And 14 over 7 is, in fact, equal to 2, which is my y. So my answer is D. You could try B and C. They won't work. All right. Next question. If y equals kx where k is a constant, well, of course k is a constant. K is just your slope, right? We said slope at any point on the line is the same. And y equals 24 when x equals 6. So let's plug those in. And now we can just solve for our constant k. K is 4. And we have our equation y equals, instead of kx, we'll put 4x. What is the value of y when x is 5? So just plug in x equals 5 here, and you get y equals 20. That's it. That's it, that's it, that's it. All right. Next question. According to the system of equations above, what is the value of x? And this is another grid in, no answer choices, of course. We don't see them here. So how do we find x? We have two equations. And what does it even mean? What is the value of x? If you have two lines, your solution is where they intersect. So if your first line is like this, your second line is like this, your solution would be at whatever point this is. Let's say that's 1, 7. I don't know. I just made this up. So I'm going to erase this. How do you solve this mathematically, though? And the way you do that is by substitution or elimination. And I'm not going to focus too much on that here. I'm going to make another video on that because that's just like a ton of stuff to learn. It's a whole new strategy. So what is the value of x? If you know elimination, that's what I'm going to do here. If you don't know it, that's still what I'm going to do here. Sorry. Anyway, what is the value of x? So most people would probably eliminate the x. They'd multiply the top equation or the bottom equation by -1. That way the x's are opposite and they cancel. But I'm going to multiply the top equation by -2. That way, I'm eliminating the y's. And that's important because I want to keep my x because they're asking me about my x. Y's go away. -x equals -7. And I get x equals 7. That's my answer. Okay. Couple things. Let's say I forgot to cross out the negative signs. And I said x equals -7. So first off, there are no negative answers on the grid-in problems. So you know that -7 is not the right answer. If you get a negative answer on the grid-ins, you know it's probably wrong. You might have forgotten to do something, and hopefully it's as easy as canceling these. However, if it's not that easy, you probably made a little mistake and have to go back and fix it. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, could you solve for y? Sure. If you had eliminated the x's, like you could have put some negatives in here and changed that and eliminated the x's. Fine. That works. It's just one extra step to take your y and plug it back in to get x. And hopefully you'd remember to plug it back in, or else if you bubble in y, that's the wrong answer. And I can almost assure you that you will not get the 0.7, here. And yeah, I can absolutely assure you looking at that. So your x and y won't be the same because they don't want you getting the y value and thinking that's the right answer and then crediting you for that, for your mistake. They want to penalize you for every single mistake. The SAT knows what they're doing. They know what answers you're going to put. Especially on the multiple choice questions. They know which answers are traps. So don't feel good about yourself because you got an answer that is, one of the multiple choice answers. Feel good about yourself if you did the problem correctly and kind of used your SAT strategies that you're learning from Brad Does Math, of course. All right. Next question. Which of the following ordered pairs satisfies the system of equations above? We could do substitution or elimination like we just did. However, I recommend just plugging in the answer choices, especially since that top equation is so easy, right? X plus y does not equal 0 here. 3 plus -2 is 1. And same here. 2 plus -2 is not 0. 2 plus -2 is -4. So A and D are out. B and C both work with the top equation. So let's try the bottom one. I'm going to plug in 2, -2. So 3 times 2 minus 2 times -2. We'll see if that equals 10. And it does. So B is the answer. We don't even need to try C. It's done. You could try it maybe if you have some time left at the end of the test just to check. But we're going to move on. So now we have the graph of a line in the xy plane has a slope of 2 and contains the point 1, 8. Okay. So I'm going to draw in boom, 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 boom. All right, so 1, 8 is right here. And if my slope is 2, that means my rise over run equals 2 over 1. And make sure, since it's positive, your line should look something like that. So I'm going to go down 2 and over 1, down 2 and over 1, down 2 and over another 1, and down 2 and over another 1. So this is my line. I know it's not perfect, and I know I only drew the first 2 quadrants. I recommend drawing all 4. I just am a little out of space, and I know the answer. Sorry, I'm cheating. And then the graph of the second line is 1, 2, and also 2, 1. So it passes through these 2 points. So I can connect them, and I can also see that the slope is up 1 and over 1. So, up 1 and over 1 again, I get to this point, and up 1 and over 1 again, I get to this point. So I got my answer is, that looks like -1, 4. You can get that by graphing if you don't want to do elimination or substitution. But I also didn't even get equations for my lines. So I saved time in figuring out equations by just graphing a little bit. So A is my x-coordinate, B is my y-coordinate, A plus B is -1 plus 4. Boom. Pretty nice. Yeah, the SAT will never really expect you to come up with your own equations for 2 lines like this. It would take so long. It would take too much time. Every question on the SAT, on the math sections, can be solved in under a minute. There's always some sort of way. And you can go back and say, oh, Brad, this question took you 3 minutes. Well, that's because I'm explaining it to you. Sick brag, I did get an 800 on the SAT when I was back in high school. So I kind of know what I'm doing, and I've studied this test a ton. And I've never seen a problem that really should take you more than a minute if you're just kind of putting your head in your paper and using your SAT strategies. I'm teaching you guys everything that I used. I'm not holding anything back. So any possible way to solve a problem, I'm going to teach you. So with that said, we have 4 more problems. The table above shows some values for the linear function f, which the following defines f. These are just points. This is 1, -2, 2, 1, 3, 4, and so forth. All we need to do is plug in these points to see if they make our equations true. I'm going to start with 4, 7. If I plug 4 into here, I get 4 minus 3, which is not 7, it's 1. And if you can prove it wrong once, it's wrong. You never look back, the answer's out. Let's plug 4 into here. 2 times 4 is 8, and 8 minus 4 is not 7. B is out. Plug 4 into here, and I get 3 times 4, which is 12, minus 5 is 7. So I know this point works. Does that mean it's my answer? No, but it means we can move on and try some other points. Let's plug 3 in. 3 times 3 is 9, minus 4, or minus 5 is 4. So this works. And then plug in 2. 3 times 2 is 6, minus 5 is in fact 1. And then plug in 1, and you get 3 minus 5, which is -2. No need to try the last answer choice. You can try it on your own. But yeah, when you have points, just plug them into your equations and see if they work. If they don't, your answer is not that. How will the quantity of the product supplied to the market change if the price of the product is increased by $10? Okay, we should be looking at the equation that has product supplied, which is here. And it says if we increase the price by $10. So let's pick a price. I'm going to say P equals 0. And let's plug that in and see what the quantity supplied is. So 1/2 of 0 is 0, plus 40 gives us S equals 40. Now let's increase that by $10. Now my P is 10. I increased the price by $10. Now 1/2 of 10 is 5, and 5 plus 40 is 45. So you can see the quantity supplied will increase by 5 units. So it's got to be B. Now, one more question with these two equations. At what price will they equal each other? Will the quantity of the product supplied equal the quantity of the product demanded? So why don't we just set these equations equal to each other? 1/2 p plus 40 equals 220 minus p. I like to get rid of fractions right away, so I'm going to multiply everything by my denominator, which is 2. And I get p plus 80 equals 440 minus 2p. Right? So I can rearrange, and I'll add 2p, subtract 80 from both sides. And I get p equals 120. Now just double and triple check that that's what they're asking you for, 120, because sometimes that will be a trap answer. For instance, they could say instead of at what price, they could say what is the quantity supplied when it's equal to the quantity demanded. And in that case, you just have to plug it back in. So just be very careful. Always make sure to answer the question they're asking. It's the easiest mistake to make. You get a number, you get excited, you just did all this work, but then you answer the wrong question and you get it wrong because they know what mistakes you guys are going to make. But here, that wasn't the case. Just throwing out an example. One last question. So we have the point 2 comma k, we have the point k comma 32, and we have the origin. Talked about that earlier, 0 comma 0. Which of the following could be the value of k? How would we know that? Well, we know that because this is a line, and the slope at any 2 points on a line is always the same. So I can pick any of these 2 points and find the slope. So let's find the slope between, 0, 0 is obviously an easy number or an easy point to use. So let's use these 2 points right now. So I'm going to say the slope, and remember how we said we subtract our y's and we subtract our x's. So y2, actually I'm going to use this one as my y2. That way I'm sticking with positive numbers. So y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. That's going to give me 32 over k for these 2 points. Now, let's use, instead of those as x2 and x1, let's use these as x2 and y2, All right, so y2 minus y1 is k minus 0, which is k, and x2 minus x1, which is 2 minus 0, is 2. So I found my slope 2 ways. One way by using these 2 points, and the other way by using these 2 points. Since the slope is always the same at any 2 points on a line, they're equal. Now I'll get rid of some of this junk, and I can see that when I cross multiply, k squared equals 64. K is 8. That's it. That's it. That's everything. That's all there is to know about linear equations. And I know I skipped over substitution and elimination, but we'll cover that in another video. But that's everything there is to know. We covered stuff like interpreting the equations, solving systems of equations, slope, issues with grid boxes and stuff. We covered a lot in this video. I thank you for watching. If these videos are a little too long for you, maybe TikTok's more your speed. Follow me on TikTok at Brad Does Math. But other than that, keep it up. Keep up the good work. Continue your SAT studying, and good luck on achieving that 800. See you guys in my next SAT video.
Brad Does Math.